Immortals of Aveum recently came to Game Pass, and as it's one of those games I've vaguely heard of yet know nothing about, I figured I should give it a try. After all, it's got Immortals in the name, and I'd love to become that. Unfortunately, this is an EA game, so even though I'd already installed it a while ago, their stupid launcher decided it needed to do another install of something extra. It's fine though, it's saying it will only take a few minutes after all.
1 hour later.
Yeah, so that update took fucking ever, but at least we're in the game itself now. The game opens with a cutscene explaining some fairly generic story stuff. The big bad is taking over the world, we've all seen this sort of stuff before. What I do like though is that this story is actually being conveyed by an in-game theatre performance, which is pretty neat. Although our character doesn't care what's going on, as he and his buddy are on the rob. This is Jack, a part-time thief and full-time cringe-inducing idiot. The other character also has a name, but she's not going to be around for long enough for me to have remembered it. The pair of thieves successfully pinch the coin purse from this patron of the arts, and then everyone decides to have a big fight, as the play was kinda shit anyway. We get to see where our current setting is, and now it's time to actually get into the game itself. I do appreciate when games let me get into the actual gameplay part of things right away, rather than just showing cutscene upon cutscene for the first half hour. Oh wait, the gameplay is just following an NPC around. I retract my statement. Yeah, about 90% of this whole first section is just following our friend, whose name appears to be Luna. It does tutorialise a couple of basic elements, like jumping and interacting with objects, but it's mostly just holding down the W key while exposition is spoken at you. To any developers out there, please stop making me follow around an NPC while doing nothing else. There are so many better ways to establish the world and give players needed exposition. To be fair, we do get to practice a little bit of the shooting during our walks around town, and this feels pretty good. Although after this quick bit of shooting we're just back to the old follow them around and get some exposition, which is going to take quite some time.
Later that same evening.
So, the big bad's army has invaded our home and now all my friends are dead. Turns out this is a great thing for me though, as now my weak magic shooting from before gets supercharged. And just look at how cool this is. The first half hour was kind of tedious, but now things have really ramped up. Combat feels great in this game, but we don't get to enjoy it for too long. As I rapidly take down all the enemies, Jack gets sad that all his friends died, and then this lady shows up, trying to recruit me to her army.
I'm Grand Magnus Kirkin of the Order of Immortals, Field Marshal to the Light's Army.
You can add late to all that. Fine. I know who you are. Seen the posters. Join the fight.
So, Jack, are you going to?
Seems like we answered yes at some point off camera, as it then cuts ahead to this scene, where the lore behind magic itself is being explained. We do also get this badass battle scene which looks really good. The visuals for this game are on point, and I've got to give it credit for that. But on the negative side of things, the cinematics and the like really do go on and on and on. Directly after that one we get this credit sequence, then the title screen, and then we go immediately into what seems to be another cutscene, and at this point the dog needed to be fed, so I went AFK for a bit to get that done. Which meant that when the cutscene did end, and then immediately threw me into combat, I was nowhere to be found. Yup, I died to the very first enemy in the training section of the game. Not really a good sign for me becoming an Immortal. At this point I should explain that the Immortals are basically just a really advanced Spec Ops unit in the good guys' army. The very best mages can take on a challenge in order to become an Immortal, but only if they're seen as worthy. There's a long road ahead for us to reach that point, and it all starts with this basic training. Fortunately, this training section is really well done. Not only does it introduce us to the various gameplay mechanics, but at the same time it also explains the lore of the world and has some fun while doing it.
That altar there holds your first red spell and a sigil to harness it. Take them both.
Okay, do I take the blue one off?
What?
What? Oh, okay, I put the red one on my left arm. Got it.
No. Just reach for the red sigil, Jack.
Neat.
Genuinely love this tutorial. It might be one of the best I've ever played through. I'm a bit mixed on the game so far, but this section is certainly done well. Along with learning about spells, I'm also given a whip, which is kinda kinky, but spells are the main focus of this section, so let's go over them quickly. Magic in this game comes in 3 different colours. Red is for your short-range powerful blasts, good for dealing with anyone who gets up close. Green provides you with your mid-range damage-dealing abilities. These spells tend to be quite fast-firing, almost like a machine gun, but made of magic. And finally, there's blue magic, which provides you with your long-range sniping spells. I'm a marksman at heart, so blue magic will be my go-to as I play, but you can quite easily switch between all 3, which does help ensure you always have the best tool for the job available to you. It doesn't take me long to get through the combat tutorial, and now it's time for Jack to ask if he can join up with the Immortals.
Why the frown, soldier? You've done well today.
Look, sir, I don't want to do this part. The just a soldier thing. Don't get me wrong, I'll fight. I promised a friend I would. Promised my family.
Did you?
It doesn't matter. What I'm getting at is, I want to be an immortal. I want to fight this war as one of you. One of the elite.
It doesn't work that way.
With respect, sir, that lie is just so... how do I put this? I'm not buying it. Alright, you're training me, personally. You command the entire army of Lucium, and it's just what? It's, oh, hey, how about I raise a few phantoms here for this kid I just met because I guess I got time to spare? It absolutely works that way.
Because then that makes you special. That's where this is going? Tell me, just how many soldiers do you think Lucium has left to train? Everyone that can fight already is, and we're still losing. Sandrax literally pushed us to the edge.
Oh,
Yeah, I like your spirit, Jack. I like you. I found a child so lost and so angry whose new powers could easily make them a threat to the kingdom I protect. The choice was either to kill you, or to turn you into a weapon against Rasharn. Because we need everyone we can get.
Back up. Option A was to kill me?
Don't mistake my attention here for an endorsement into the Order, Jack. You'll put in the time, on the front lines, like everyone else.
How much time are we talking?
Cool, looks like I've been a soldier for the past 5 years. We're now positioned on the front lines of this war, and we need to fight back the encroaching enemy if we want to stay alive. Although Jack's more concerned about the fact that today is the day that aspiring Immortals take the test to join their ranks, and he's stuck here instead. But the General does let us know that if we help win the fight here, then we'll be ready for the test. So it's off into combat we go, and I'm very happy to be in the midst of things. Combat is by far what this game does best, so the more of it that's thrown my way, the happier I am. As I'm going through, I also get my first Ascension, which is basically just a perk point. There's a good number of perks to unlock, and I will be getting plenty as I play, but none of them are going to change up how I'm playing too much, so I won't show off any future leveling in this video here. We do get stronger from doing this, but apparently not strong enough to fight off this big beastie, who picks us up in its claws and starts flying us away. Don't worry though, Jack has a plan to get out of this predicament.
Let me go!
We're now a fair distance away from where our troops are stationed, so our goal is to make our way back to them. On the way, we get to experience more of the combat that this game provides, and this big open arena battle in particular was great fun. The different ranges made it feel actually important to switch up which spells I used, and knowing which abilities to use when is such a satisfying feeling. What's less satisfying is the fact that Jack has no idea how to mantle. I guess when you start casting magic from your hands, you forget that they can be used for more mundane purposes as well. On my way back, I come across a concentrated force of troops, who appear to be searching for something important. At least we presume it must be important, as there's enough troops here to make this the hardest fight I've tackled so far, so they better not just be on the lunch run or something boring like that. We pursue them, and unless I'm very much mistaken, that's not a Big Mac. The person in charge has already grabbed what they came here for, and considering they can fly and I can't, I pretty much failed at stopping them in any way whatsoever. While searching for my way out of this underground structure, I do come across this. You thought the whip was kinky? Well, now the game's given me this ornate butt plug, which I have to use to escape this area. Fortunately, the game tells me that you use it by shooting it at green objects or enemies to slow them down, because otherwise I'd have been checking the controls for an insert into anus button for quite a while. Seems we're not far from when we started the battle, and it's a reasonably small number of enemies to fight through. But before we can make it through the main gate, we meet up with an old friend. Time for the game's first boss fight, baby. While most combat so far hasn't felt too deadly, this one was a true challenge. The Howler dishes out a lot of damage with their attacks, and have quite a hefty moveset to draw on. Twice in a row the beast very nearly killed me, but I quickly developed a strategy to beat the creature. When up in the sky and unable to attack me, I would chip away at its health with my blue spells. When it got down on the ground, I would switch to using rapid green magic for the increased DPS, and also occasionally use my fancy numbered abilities for a big extra hit of damage. Although the main focus at this point was staying alive, as dodging and shielding from the attacks sure wasn't easy. The fight was a real challenge, but in the end, I came out victorious. And with my victory over this deadly creature, it seems I've proven myself worthy to take the test to become an immortal.
You're going to be late. Get to the Palathon. Selection's starting soon.
Having to fight in the army for half a decade before you're allowed to even apply for your dream job? Sounds like the General's been taking advice from Rishi Sunak. Obviously, I'm joking. The General in this game is nothing like the UK Prime Minister. After all, we've seen her try and help out at least one poor person. Before setting off on my journey to reach the testing grounds, I get to do a small bit of exploring at the forward base, and come across the Forge. This is basically just the shop of the game, where you spend the things you collected while fighting on various bits of gear. I mostly like to save up on currency when I play games, but do decide to splash out and buy a different green spell to equip. This one has vastly improved fire rate and capacity, which makes it seem like it's going to be a real machine gun style of spell. I have to take this long winding path to reach the next area, and despite being between two friendly zones, it's crawling with enemy soldiers. For any regular travellers this would be a downside, but in my case it lets me test out my new spell. Yeah, that's some pretty mental DPS, which will certainly come in handy at points, but I'm mostly going to stick with the blue spell, as I do love getting to snipe things in games. Before I make it to the next location, I come across this mini-trial arena thing, called the Shroud Fane Fortitude Fane. If you're wondering why I've not been naming most of the locations or characters in this game, this is why. Everything just has some crazy weird name, which I just don't understand. In this strange realm I have to do a little platforming, and then fight off enemies who are largely much the same as the ones I've been fighting before. Although I do also get introduced to these weird crab creatures, who prove to be a fair sight more challenging than the humanoid enemies I've faced so far. Still, I'm able to blast my way through them, and as a reward for completing this trial, unlock a little health boost. That small side task completed, I make it to the next location, where I take this nifty little aircraft up to the location where I'll have to undergo my trial to become an immortal. Up here in this sky realm, I'm introduced to a guy dressed in green who refuses to stop talking, but at least seem kind of friendly, and to this lady in red, who fucking hates me just for having the gall to even exist. The two of them must already be immortals, it seems, as they argue for a bit over whether or not I should undertake the test. Red Lady says I can't go through with selection because...
The path is ready for this group, and I'm not asking her to reconfigure for one more.
And Green Guy's rebuttal is...
Come on, Zendara.
Which is obviously the superior argument, so off into the path I go. Because I did that optional area, I'm already somewhat familiar with this style of location, but the path ahead of me does seem a little unclear. I figure I maybe have to try and double jump and then boost forward in order to get to that weird portal thing, but that doesn't go so well. I'd been told before entering not to fall to my death, or else I'd fail the test and stop existing or something like that, but it turns out that was complete BS, and I'm 100% fine. Now that the path ahead of me is spawning in a little faster, it's a pretty straightforward bit of platforming combined with some light combat. Really nothing all that challenging compared to what I've dealt with so far, and I already know that falling off the map is an empty threat, so I don't even have to be that careful with my dodging. In the next section I come across this spinning green platform, which is going way too fast for me to land on it. Fortunately I picked up that butt plug earlier, which lets me slow it down just enough for me to get over, albeit in not the most graceful manner. When I get to the second of these platforms, I realise I can shoot it with the butt plug multiple times to slow it down even further, and this time actually perform the task with a little more composure. After this it's on to fighting some beast-like enemies, and these things actually give me a run for my money. Combat in this game is just so damn good, and it feels worthwhile to actually use all of my different spells and abilities, rather than just figuring out which thing has the most broken stats, and then relying on that all the time. Honestly, I just wish the game was less linear and more open world, so that I could play around with the combat in a more freeform space. But the game is linear, and as such I'm pushed forward to the next section, which is this trippy recreation of the first area of the game. It's meant to be the path testing me by making me relive my troubled past, and I've got to say, it's a lot more fun than when I was last here. This time I actually get to fight as I go, the backstory of my character is presented in a more interesting and organic way, and overall it's just a much better experience than the opening was. And while I'm here, I also pick up my first ultimate ability, which lets me do this. With this new power unlocked, it's easier than ever to fight through the remaining enemies. And while I was expecting another boss fight at the end of this section, maybe against the giant version of the main baddie, instead I just pass through this portal and seem to be back in the real world.
Where is everyone?
I sent them all home. You're the only one to pass.
Really?
Follow me, Initiate. Let's head back up.
That was a real anticlimactic end to the test, so at this point I was feeling pretty paranoid. Maybe this was another test for Pathfare for me, so I was on full alert. But nope, turns out I was the only one who passed, despite falling several times, so it's time for me to give a speech and be granted the rank of Immortal.
Jack of the House Unforeseen, newly mantled Immortal, Champion Protector of Lucium, Master Magnus of the Order Elite. What words do you have for those under our command?
I don't even have to finish.
What? Bottoms up?
And there we go, I managed to become an Immortal. Honestly, I kind of get why I haven't really heard much about this game. It's got a brilliant combat system, but the story's mid, the NPC and overall writing is pretty hit or miss, and the linear nature means you have to deal with all of it, rather than just getting to focus on the good stuff. Honestly, if this game was actually open world and I could just go about the place fighting the enemy with the awesome gameplay provided, then I'd have a great time. But as a much more linear RPG, it really needed to have a story which hooked me to keep me playing, and it didn't. Still, if you've got Game Pass and this looked interesting to you, it may well be worth picking up and giving it a shot. As for me, I'm going to be taking a look at what other games I can make the next I Tried video on. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, subscribe if you want more like this, and maybe even become a channel member or check out the Patreon page if you want to support in a more direct way. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.